Okay, so I have done some research. I have been researching that food drying thing. So, the dehydration of foods. We've got three different methods of dehydration. There's the traditional air drying, where they use the heat to evaporate the water out, which can cook out some of the nutrients that are heat sensitive, like vitamin C and things like that, so it can decrease the nutritional value overall. And then there's the freeze dry method, which is considered the gold standard because it maintains the nutrition and the shape. And then the middleman, like in between, would be radiant energy vacuum. Sorry, I had to look this up. These three, the information on the methods I got from the National Institutes of Health online. So the radiant energy vacuum, REV, uses microwaves applied under a vacuum. So it retains the nutrients more efficiently than air dry, but not quite as well as the freeze dried. Now, on to the actual question. Does How does the drying process increase the nutritional value? So as far as per unit, so if you've got a regular peach and a dried peach, they'll have the same nutritional value, but that regular peach still has all of that water. So it weighs more. It's got more volume and weight behind it than this shriveled up little guy over here. This guy's more dense in nutrients. So 1 still equals 1, but when you look at it from grams, 100 grams of dried is going to be more nutrient dense than the 100 grams of fresh, simply because the fresh has that water in it, which literally, waters down the nutrients. So it's more, uh, it'll help with the hydration better, and it has other benefits in and of itself, but it doesn't have the same nutrient density as the dried fruit. Now, with that in mind, there's times and places to use the dried fruit. If you have to be careful about your sugar intake, if you've got diabetes, if you've just got overall sensitivities to sugars and things like that, you really want to be cautious with your dried fruits. A lot of companies, they're already more dense in sugar, right? The water's been taken out, so all of the sugar is now balled up. And then some companies will add additional sugar into it. So you've got to really be careful and look at what you're purchasing and things like that, as well as just kind of be mindful that with more density with the nutrients comes more density with the sugar as well. And so it's really what your body needs is what should determine that. So for the information about the densities and the actual impact of the serving size and grams and that information, I couldn't specifically find the answer to the question in any of my usual go-tos like Harvard Medical School or the Red Cross or Mayo Clinic or anything like that I usually use. And I don't generally do this, but I cross examined, I cross referenced an article in Quora, 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 or Qora, I can't remember, and read it. And then they seem to have pretty much the same information. And then I saw another Facebook article that also verified that. And then, just kind of from a logical standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. So that's my reference for that information. I don't usually just go to Reddit for whatever. I don't, I promise. You are going to, like, most of, like, National Institutes of Health. That's the first place I went. And they didn't have the answer for the question, but they had a good answer for other potential questions. So I snagged that and I kept going with my search. I couldn't find anything that answered exactly why the drying process increases the iron until I went to those other sources. And like I said, I still cross reference them with other sources to kind of measure their validity. And then I just kind of thought from a logical, does this make sense? So, remember, don't take a lot of things with a grain of salt when it comes to these things either. Always do your research. Now, I spent some time before making this video making sure that I did do the research because the question came up in the last video that I made earlier, and I wanted to know and I wanted to let you guys know. So I did the research. You can do your own research, see what you find. Please let me know down below if you have anything to elaborate on or you find something that you cross-referenced that doesn't necessarily match the answer that I got. I would love to know. I genuinely would. So yeah, that's the how dehydration affects the iron content. It's not necessarily per fruit, but per grams in the serving that the change comes in. So yeah, remember to do your research. Remember to make sure that you're knowledgeable in your own body's needs before making decisions as far as like dried fruits versus fresh fruits. You know, companies will add extra sugar to dried fruits, but if you need the extra iron, there's always something. You always just got to weigh the pros and the cons and figure out what works best for you. Anyways, that's my little spiel. I thought that was interesting. Wanted to share with you. Okay, love you. Bye bye.